I just want to say I don't consent. I do not consent. I'm completely for our freedoms and liberties of opinion and to speak, but I don't consent to what the government has done. Any group or any document, whether it's ancient or recent, that comes against an individual's liberties, I stand against. The smallest person on this planet is the individual. Those who deny any individual rights or beliefs or freedoms cannot be defenders of the minority. Two people who aren't me agree to trade 2 apples for 2 oranges. Does this apply to me? 2 people agree to have sex with each other. Does this apply to me? 10 people agree to build a house for someone who isn't me. Does this apply to me? See, this is the thing. We have a government that has not abided by the rules and laws of the Most High. There are a bunch of sociopaths. Over 200 years ago, there was a document wrote to a written instrument that they would make the majority house rules. Was it based on scriptural principles that the righteous creator made? And what government now that exists abides by the laws? See, government is a euphemism for men and women forcing people to pay them. It doesn't make consent of the governed a contradiction in terms. How could the governed consent if refusal to do so results in force being initiated against them? In order for there to be consent, wouldn't there also be the capacity to withhold consent? If people inflict violence on you for withholding consent, doesn't that indicate that compliance isn't consensual? Wouldn't that actually be compulsion? Aren't compulsion and consent mutually exclusive? If one individual member of the governed has the capacity to withhold consent, how does the entire group have this capacity? Is it even appropriate to lump everyone into an amorphous blob called the people in the first place? Does it even make sense that the so-called people has the same capacity to consent that an individual has? Isn't consent a function of an individual body? How do groups of people share bodily functions? When I eat food, do I do it with your mouth? When I see the world and look at the world, do I do it with your eyes? When I touch my face, do I do it with your hands? When I think, do I do it with your brain? Whatever I do in my mind, heart, body, soul, and spirit is with me individually. My thoughts, my beliefs, my brain, the way that I think. These leftist brain thinkers who think they can rule and govern and control the world and take your money to pay them to do it when they don't even live by moral code. Wouldn't an affirmative answer to the last 4 questions, do you eat with my hands, do you think with my brain, do you see with my eyes, do you touch your face with my hands, do you look at the world with my eyes? With these questions I just ask you, it makes no sense, for we're all individuals. You can't say yes that you do, okay? We're all individuals. It's not possible to express the bodily functions of another person in the first person perspective. How could entire groups of people have this ability if they wouldn't the will of the people collapse on itself as a non-argument for the exact same reason? Speaking of morphosizing entire groups of people, isn't that exactly what corporate personhood is? If leftists justified their presence for theft by, quote, saying that it's justified by the consent of the governed, why are they so upset about corporate personhoods What's the difference? Aren't they being entirely inconsistent? If I explicitly say that I haven't given my consent to be governed, wouldn't telling me to leave my home or to do this or do that be a non-consensual situation? Isn't it kind of sociopathic to insist that you have someone's consent when they're explicitly telling you that they don't have your consent? If you disagree and actually think that I gave my consent when I didn't, when would I have done this? Where did you acquire this information? And who would have better knowledge than I do about whether or not I freely gave my consent? I didn't give my consent for the government to condone same-sex marriage, which is an abomination and goes against the Old Testament laws and the New Testament laws in the scriptures. No means no. Are others in a position to give my consent on my behalf who put them in this position? Who put them in this position? Was it me? No. Not that I know of. Because I don't have any recollection of this whatsoever. Do you? When you made President Obama president of the nation 8 years ago, did you give him consent to condone same-sex marriage? When you voted him into office, did you tell him it was okay for them to have sexual immorality come into our nation so that we would suffer the judgment as Sodom and Gomorrah? Did you know that Pizzagate and what the government is doing, being pedophiles and sexually abusing children, did you condone that? I didn't condone that. So I do not consent. No means no. I rebuke Satan and I denounce him from this world, from the governmental office, from the White House. He does not have my consent to do what he's doing in this world and in this government. Okay? I rebuke, revoke, renounce, denounce all satanic, demonic powers from doing the evil that they're doing in this nation and in this world. We are supposed to have morals. The price of freedom is eternal vigilance, and indifference to this notion is the means by which the people will secure their own oppression. Rules made by government that where government is not following proper rules, laws, and governing, if you disobey, you're going to pay, they say. Okay? Status means one threat ruler. Where there's one king who was supposed to rule. We are supposed to be self-governing. He set the example of righteousness and gave us a moral code. And those who break it, the avenger of death or the enemy that he sends, avenges the innocent and the righteous. So it's like we have a bully forcing, what they want. These politicians, they don't care about us. The ruling class gives you two choices. Given you have slightly different rhetoric, but always nearly identical behavior. You can vote for the narcissistic and authoritarian collectivist, A, or the narcissistic authoritarian collectivist, B. The fact you have two choices doesn't make it any less ridiculous because they're two sides of the same coin. For a historical example, consider Soviet Russia under Stalin, where the people had a right to vote, but only one choice to vote for was given. They could only vote for Stalin. So, it's as ridiculously bogus as it is now, with the DNC only being one example, you still get to play the game and vote. You are essentially saying to the political masters that you will fall for anything That doesn't matter how transparent the silly circus gets, you will still continue to legitimize the game and empower the establishment. When is man going to stop being a bunch of chickens and pussies and wusses and stand up against this evil government? You deserve your communist dictators if you don't stand up and do something about it. And the reason why they want to take people's guns and rights is so that they can control you even more. You're choosing to be a slave, allowing them to keep telling you that they represent you and that you consented to this. You are doing something stupid and counterproductive while the tyrants laugh at you and your pathetic gullibility. Have a lot of fun with that, people. Your dictators who want to cause so much evil, who are trying to take over this world and destroy, they're of the enemy. The elite and the rich, their corporation. This America has become a corporation. We really lost our rights over 103 years ago when they did the Federal Reserves, the false banking currency system that we're under, that has the all-seeing eye and the pyramid, which goes back to ancient Egyptology, pagan gods and goddesses. You have given them a right to rule. The difference between law and legislation and is the connotation is what's the command? What are the commandments that we were given? Over 600 and something the 10 commandments were based on, that man has crossed borders and caused injustices with their greed and their hatred. And so their ideas that they have made become mandatory. Why is it that the law enforcement abuses their authority and gets away with abusing anyone who stands against them in the government, who protest the bad decisions that they feel have been made? You know, that's an immoral act, made to be a moral one, because they have the authority and they think they have the authority to abuse. Everyone is under an illusion, because the great I am, the Most High, the greatest one, the righteous one who created good and evil, he says we're supposed to be good and that evil will be destroyed. And when you have an evil king ruling and an evil government ruling, that temple and that evil is supposed to be destroyed. So that's what makes this world a civilized place, where human beings can live and exist safely in their homes with their children and families, and not have to worry about sexual deviants and perverts and pedophiles and homosexuals. Do you know there's a story of a police officer recently who was caught for bestiality and homosexuality and hurting little children, and he pretty much got off the hook pretty easy. What moral life? So you see, we're supposed to be self-government. Obeying the word means being good. Right and wrong, it does matter. Moral lives do matter. That's how we have good human beings and justice and righteousness. The evils committed in the name of the authority of this government is wrong, and judgment is coming. They control your minds and dominate your minds with these twisted things that they have put in the world through TV, media, and music. Adolf Hitler got away with what he did because he brainwashed everybody. They are in direct opposition to what is right. And rulers are supposed to oppose what is wrong and stand up for what is right. It is anti-human, anti the clay people. That's why it says that the iron doesn't mix with clay. That's why there will be war. That's why, even though it's not being shown on the news, we are in the battle of Armageddon. We are battling for our souls against Satan. Stop securing your own oppression and your own slavery. Stand up for what is right. There is a mass manipulation that they are trying to control you with and make you have their perceptions through what they put in the media and in the news. If you see something over and over and over based on what you see on a screen or video, you're going to start believing it. If they try to say, oh, all redheads are evil, you're going to start thinking that. If they keep showing that, if they keep on, you have got to be discerning, and reading the scriptures will help you with that, and getting the Aramaic Hebrew language and tongue and calling on the righteous one. Hawa is what I found his name was. And I wrote a book called Clearing My Heavenly Father's Name by Sandra Musgrove, and I explained why I killed my husband, who was a pedophile. And I also show in my videos Don Hester, a video with him and a voice recording of him, and he claims to be the devil himself. And believe me, I was married to this man. I was in denial of that, but I do really believe he was the devil now. So, people need to stand up and decide amongst themselves, to declare what they believe is right and wrong, and that, it should not be forced on the people what the government thinks is right. We were all supposed to be given individual liberties. If gay people want to be gay and be homosexuals, then they should do that, without forcing that decision on everybody else in the world by causing the same-sex marriage thing. Marriage, if you look it up, was supposed to be between a husband and a wife. That is what's natural. Anything besides that is unnatural. Just like screwing an animal is unnatural. Doing something to a little child is sick and unnatural. Pedophiles, homosexuals, and bestiality, these sins are sick and disgusting and need to be cut off from people and from the land. And our government, from what I've studied, is practicing this evil, immoral stuff. So they need to be thrown out of the government. And they're not supposed to be ruling in the government. Evil, wicked men. And us taxpayers are paying for them to rule over us? Really? You're supposed to be self-governed. If you obey the commandments and the laws, then you are living morally, and you will be barakothed, blessed, as they say. If you're disobeying the commandments that were given to us by the great I Am about what cleanliness and righteousness and morality and purity is, then you would suffer the consequences and be cut off from the land of the living, the word says. And the avenger of the great I Am comes your way, and he gets you. Believe me, he will. So we never did need a government and a king to rule over us, because we have a righteous king who sees everything from heaven, and heaven is his throne, and earth is his footstool, and he does trample down all of his enemies. So I don't consent to this government, to the ruling authorities, the police enforcement, the churches, all the evil raw legion and the Vatican and the Catholics in this world who have caused nothing but falsehood, who took away the truth of what the original scriptures said, who took away the truth of what the Most High's name was. And I command in the name of Yahweh that you get out of the ruling class, and that, my Most High come back and destroy you. That, if you don't get on your knees and confess and repent and expose the truth and come out from the darkness and demons and evil that is in you and overcome Satan, the one doomed to destruction, that you deserve to go to Hagenom in Sheol with him.